Okay, here we go. So this is the first of probably 5 videos that I'll be doing on financial maths, which is covered in years 9, 10, and 11, and 12 of the Australian curriculum. And so we're aiming towards simple and compound interest. But in this first video, we're going to look at this. So we're going to want to understand the meaning of interest, interest rate, principal, and amount. Okay. And given a principal, interest rate, and number of years, we're going to use a table to manually determine the simple interest and final value of an investment or loan, as well as doing the same thing for compound interest. Okay. And so we'll be able to solve problems like this. So Loic takes out a loan of $10,000 at 10% per year simple interest. By completing this table, find the amount that he owes after 3 years and the total interest he has paid. So that's what we're working towards, and we're going to do the same for compound interest, like I said. But first we need to understand what is interest. Okay, interest is like rent paid on money you borrow. So you can't just borrow money for free. Otherwise everyone would have houses. Okay, you have to pay interest on this money. Okay, so that's what I'm saying here. So when you pay back the loan, you're paying back the original amount plus interest to the lender. Okay, so the amount you owe to the bank is the initial principal plus the interest accrued. And you may have seen this as a formula, A equals P plus I. Now, interest can also be good if you are investing. So if you put your money into a savings account, you can earn interest because you're lending that money to the bank. And that looks like this. So the amount in your bank account at any time is the initial principal you invest plus the interest earned. And again, that same formula, A equals P plus I. All right. Let's check out this. So like I said, interest is like rent paid on the money you borrow. Okay. And interest rate. So don't get this capital I mixed up with the little I when we come to the simple and compound interest formulas. So interest rate is little I, and you might be given an interest rate of say 3%. All right. The interest rate is the amount of interest due per period as a proportion of the amount borrowed or invested. So as a proportion of that initial principal. So when you're using interest rate in your calculations, you want to make sure that you convert it to a decimal first. And so to convert 3% to a decimal, you know that percent means divide by 100. And then you're just doing that little decimal point trick. So to divide by 100, you're moving the decimal 2 places to the left since there's 2 zeros in 100. Okay, so 0 goes under that hump there. Okay, so you need to make sure that you convert to a decimal in your calculations. And the other variables that we have, so a common question is, what is the difference between a principal and an amount? The principal is the present value of the loan or investment. It's the initial value or amount borrowed or invested. So the initial value or amount borrowed is the principal. So in that very first year, what you borrowed. The amount is the future value. So it's what your loan or investment amounts to after a number of years. Okay. And it includes interest. So again, this is a useful formula. Amount equals principal plus interest. And you can also rearrange that formula to find the interest as well, just by bringing that P over to the other side. Okay, simple interest versus compound interest. So there's 2 types of ways that interest is calculated. Okay, So again, the bank calculates interest and adds this to the loan or investment after every year. All right. So simple interest is the same every year. So you just have to do one simple little calculation and based on the initial principal. So I'm pretty sure it's just like I equals your little interest rate times your principal. And that's got to be as a decimal. Whereas compound interest is calculated based on the principal balance plus any interest or you've already accrued. So you're paying interest on interest. All right, so it's not ideal. Okay. Another thing about simple interest is the same every year. Well, like I said, it's a fixed percentage of the principal. Compound interest, it compounds over time. So as well as paying off your original balance, it's getting bigger and bigger. So it's not that much fun, compound interest, unless you are investing. That's nice because you want more interest. You want to earn more interest. So let's check out this. So simple interest. Loic takes out a loan of $10,000 at 10% per year simple interest. Okay, find the amount he owes after 3 years and the total interest he has paid. Okay, so first of all, I want to work out what my variables are. All right. Loic takes out a loan of $10,000. So this is the initial value, right? That initial principal invested P. That's at the start. I'm going to put that right next to our year 1 there. Okay, value at the start of the year. Okay, and eventually we want to find out the amount he owes after 3 years and the total interest paid. So let's just write down amount he owes. And the total interest. The total interest paid. But let's fill out this little table. So back here we saw that the interest was little I times P for simple interest. So I'm just going to do that. We only need to do one little calculation for this, which is nice. So the little I, so that's another thing that we've got to do, is convert this percentage to a decimal. So 10%. Percent means divide by 100. 10 divided by 100 is 0.1. Moving that decimal over. So we're using that in our calculations. 0.1 times 10,000. And that's going to give us our interest the whole way through. So that's nice. So that's 1,000. Okay. So the value at the end of year 1. Remember that thing that I said about the amount is your principal plus your interest? Okay. So the value at the end of year 1, we're just going to do it for every year. We've got 10,000 add 1,000. And that gives us 11,000. Just going to go year by year. So at the start of year 2, he's got the value at the end of year 1. All right. So he's got 11,000 in his account. And like I said, with interest, we have simple interest. We have the same amount of interest every year. So I'm just going to fill that in for all 3 years. Okay. Now, again, let's look across this row. The value at the end of year 2. The value at the end of year 2 is going to be your principal plus your interest. Principal plus interest. 11,000 plus 1,000. 12,000. Then you've got the value at the end of year 2 is the same as the value at the start of year 3. Okay, interest remains the same. It's nice and constant for simple interest. And then, yeah, again, 12,000 plus 1,000, 13,000. Okay. So this is the amount in his account, or the amount that he owes the bank at the end of year 3 is $13,000. So I'm going to say amount he owes the bank, even though he just took out a loan of $10,000, he owes the bank the interest as well. So is $13,000. Okay, we haven't answered the question fully yet. They're asking for the total interest he has paid. Total interest he has paid. Well, you can sum up this column, right? There's a few ways to do it. The total interest he's paid is 1,000 plus 1,000 plus 1,000, 3,000. You could also find the interest paid using this formula. So I'll just be like, okay, I equals A take P, rearranging. Get that P on the other side, makes it negative. Okay. What was his amount? It was 13,000 at the end of year 3. So his interest at the end of year 3 is going to be that. We take away that initial principal. It has to be that initial principal, 10,000. So again, we get 3,000. More than one way to kill a cat or skin a cat. I don't know. I don't want to skin a cat. I like cats. Let's check this out. Okay, take a deep breath. Compound interest now. So compound interest can be fun. Okay. Let's try it out. So same problem as before, but this time it's compounding yearly. Okay. So again, takes out a loan of 10,000. P, the principal, the initial value, 10% per annum. Well, we changed that before. It was 0.1 per year. We had to convert it to a decimal. Find the amount here is after 3 years and the total interest he has paid. So again, amount, and I've done it again. Total interest he has paid, 3 years. Just going to do it manually to begin with to get a feel for how the formula works. So the value at the start of year. Okay. So that's our principal. Right? The interest is, once again, let's check that little formula that I had. The interest is I times P for this first year. It was 0.1 times 10,000, which was 1,000. We got our value at the end of the year, 10,000 plus 1,000. $11,000. So it all looks the same in the first year. But then we grab that across, right? The value at the start of the year is 11,000. Now we are actually using this. Our interest won't be constant this time. We're going to use this amount, 11,000, to calculate our new interest. Now it's going to be 0.1 times our new principal is actually going to be 11,000. Okay, so it all adds up. So that's the interest we're paying in year 2 now is $1,100. And then we've just got to do that again. We've got to add 11,000 plus our interest. So that should be 12,100. Whereas it was 12,000 last time. Then we grab the end of year 2's value, that becomes the start of year 3's. And we've got our interest is going to be our interest rate times, this time, our new principal. We're always grabbing from that year. So remember how I said we're paying interest on interest this time? That's what's happening. So 0.1 times 12,100 is 1,210. Value at the end of the year. Okay, remember that we add these now. So how much is that loan? How much does he have to pay back at the end of year 3 if he doesn't pay anything back yet? We've got 12,100 plus 1210, just working across the row. Chuck it in your calculator. 12,100 plus 1210, $13,310. Again, comparing that with the simple interest, he's got about $300 more to pay. So let's check if we have answered the question. Find the amount he owes after 3 years. Okay, amount he owes after 3 years. Go to year 3. After means end. Amount owed after 3 years with compound interest is 13,310. And the total interest he has paid. Total interest, summing up this column, 1,000 plus 1,100 plus 1210. 3,310. Let's just call that total interest. So that's the total interest he has paid. And remember, there's another way to find interest. If you start with A equals P plus I, we can also rearrange that for I equals A, take P. Got your initial, you've got your amount, the amount that it amounts to, 13,310. Take, what was our P? 10,000. So it's good to know a few ways to do things so you can check your answer against each other. And again, the interest was the same that we calculated, 3,310. So that's nice. What I was also thinking that we could do, okay, there is a, I'm sure you've seen the compound interest formula if you're at this video. So let's check it out. It is A equals P times 1 plus I to the N. Let's see if we can get the answer quicker this way. Okay, so A equals P times 1 plus I to the N. Well, our principal is 10,000. Our little I is 0.1. Our N, our number of years, is 3. So we can just use a formula and get that straight away. That's what I was trying to get at in many words. Look at that. You don't have to do a table every time. Gets you the 13,310 immediately. Amount owed after 3 years. Okay. And again, if we go back to our simple interest, I'm sure you've seen this formula, I equals PIN. We can find out interest a lot quicker this way. The P was 10,000. We've got our I, 0.1, times our N, which was, where's our N at? Oh yeah, number of years, 3. Chuck it in your calculator. 10,000 times 0.1 times 3. We can immediately find that our total interest is 3,000. And if we want to find the amount, there's our little magic formula here. So it's a little bit back to front, I guess, with simple interest. You're calculating the interest first, then you're finding the amount. All right, so we've got amount is P plus I. Okay, our P is 10,000. Our I is 3,000. And we can get there straight away. We can get to our amount at the end of year 3. Okay, so that's nice. Now let's check where we're at. Yeah, so this is how it goes. So compound interest is better if you're investing, but worse if you're borrowing. Okay, so have a look at this. So we're interested in interest. We're interested in the interest part. Look at this, how it compounds over time. You get to a lot of compounds, you got lots more money to pay. Or in this case, this is earning. So look, if someone had a simple interest account at the end of 10 years at 10% per year, they're earning just $10,000. Whereas compound interest, they're earning like 50% more, right? So again, compound interest is better if you're investing, but worse if you're borrowing. Look at that. The amount goes right up. Whereas simple interest is just that flat rate. You're paying that constant amount every year. It's a lot nicer to budget for. Okay. So I might leave this video here, and our learning goals for next time, we're going to do a few more simple interest and compound interest problems. Okay, but thank you for listening. Hopefully you got through my drony voice.